it's like the structure of language would be just like no, it's difficult to explain it, but
well, it's interesting. You know, some people think that different teachers say it more clearly. I mean, I think we all resonate with the way different people say it. But then, like Tony says, you know, it's not the words, it's something else. Have you heard him say that?
Yes, I have. But like with Tony, I have the feeling that if I would make a question, then I already know that the question itself is somehow wrong.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you have any questions right now? If Tony were here?
Not really, but like it would be interesting to sometimes speak like about communication itself, like
Yeah.
with Tony, like his communication has also like changed in some way. Like he has learned, like with some words there is more misunderstanding and more understanding, and like being and mean and those kind of things. But
Yeah.
like
yeah, the communication. You're right. That's what J. Krishnamurti did. He had these long talks about words and trying to get to what was behind them. And Tony sort of does the opposite, where it's a refusal of words in a way, just a continual starving of the seeking energy through words. But the communication is, yeah, I think it's also just beautiful. It's all beautiful, you know, the silence, the refusal of this is not the right word, and also the embracing of this is the right word. You know, this word expresses that which cannot be expressed as anything. And somebody asked me earlier, you know, when people say it's just this, what are they referring to by this? What do you think, Mika?
no, somehow no, I have the feeling, and there's like I could, like Tony is saying, that I could sometimes say like also that there is nothing and there is nobody and nothing is happening. That is one way, but it's also like what you said, like this is all there is this, or something like. But if I don't have anybody like near here with whom I could like speak these kind of things. Like I have to travel like 600 kilometers to Helsinki. There is sometimes meetings, and this is like no, it is like somehow if somebody is saying that there is no one and nothing is happening and everything is nothing and everything, it somehow it sounds like total nonsense. And like if I say somebody could think that it sounds like conspiracy theory or something like that kind of like crazy thing.
Yeah, Mika,
Mhm.
can I say something about what you're saying? I think what is meant by all of I think what's spoken about is not an abstract concept. It's more, yeah, it's not something you could think like you can't understand it by thinking about it more, or it's not an abstract out there or something else. It's just it's just the immediate experience of what's here. So trying to kind of work it into any, like if someone were to work it into their lives in a certain way, it's still in the conceptual realm. So it's not a mystical anything. There's nothing, it's just completely ordinary and completely completely simple too, so yeah.
I know, but there is this, it's somehow, but if I say it to somebody like that it, like I know, like in the meeting when it's like spoken, then it make it like there is the feeling and there is like no problem with it. But if you try to like explain it, then it just gets more and more complicated. That it's like the problem is more like with the communication, I think.
Yeah, because it's not in that language. It's not in language. It's not something that could be found in language, and it's not anything. It's not it's not in that conceptual realm. It's just a lot more concrete. So anytime you discuss it, you're just going into lots and lots of descriptions, but it's not actually it. It is just a completely simple, ordinary now, kind of what is.
Yes, I agree completely, yes.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I think Art just had something to do. So hi, Harvey. How are you doing?
Good, Emerson. How are you?
Yeah. I'm not sure what was being discussed earlier, but yeah, I think Msura was saying something. Go ahead, Msura. Sorry for cutting you off. I just wanted to say that I'm here and Harvey's here. If you guys want to continue what you were talking about, please go ahead.
No, I wasn't. I was just responding to Mika, who I by the way, Mika, I do understand what you were trying to say there. I think it just gets very kind of misconstrued, or just there's a lot of confusion about I don't know, the sense that I get is like people try to, which I was doing a lot too, and I'm starting just to get this realization. They kind of try to place it in a construct, in a abstract construct, or in a conceptual, the conceptual realm of things, when it's actually just talking about the immediate experience of what is. And I think it just gets it gets confusing. It sounds like this something out there that you kind of have to put place into your life, like kind of from the outside, I don't know if anyway, that's kind of what that was.
Oh, totally. I think what a lot of people try to do is they try to conceptualize it, put it into ideas, something that can be attained, something that can be grasped, when it's absolutely ungraspable. I'm going to ask Harvey to make a comment on that one. Go ahead, Harvey. If you can be my co-host, actually, because Art had to step out for a bit.
Sure. Mika, I only heard part of it because I was trying to get into Zoom and it wasn't working for a while. Could you sort of just kind of repeat, if you don't mind, what your concern was?
No, there was not actually any concern. I was just talking about like communication itself, that like there is often like problem with the structure of language itself, like English language, there is it's mainly like names like subjectives like nuance, and if you use the language, you somehow like no like the communication just is coming like more and more complicated, like I was, no, it's difficult to explain, but the idea came like from David Bohm, who was having this dialogues with people, and he has this idea that he made his own language, which was like just mainly verbs.
Right.
So, and at the end of his language, he found that there was some native Indian language, like Blackfeet Indian language, that were based mainly in verbs.
Right.
Like, so his idea was like the problem with communication, like these kind of things, and like the nature of life is also problematic, like also partly because the structure of language is somehow that makes it difficult to use it properly.
Right. So one of the, I mean, I agree with you, and one of the things that I think you were mentioning at the beginning, I thought I heard the name Tony Parsons go by earlier, but I'm not sure. But one of the things that David Bohm, when he was dialoguing with Jiddu Krishnamurti, very often in the dialogues, Bohm was trying to work with the languaging that Jiddu Krishnamurti used. And in a sense, when you hear different teachings, whether it was Krishnamurti or David Bohm or Parsons or anybody, my own experience is that instead of attempting to conceptualize or analyze it, is to just let it sort of be with you and see if, in a sense, there's a type of resonance that occurs, and there's an understanding that sometimes goes beyond the ego or cognitive structure. You know, because language is different. Every language is different. English is noun oriented and some are verb oriented. But the thing is to see if you can sort of resonate with it and see if just by being with it, if the language that you're hearing or the words you're hearing can sort of kind of reveal something that is beyond conceptual understanding. Let me know if that helps at all, if that means anything to you.
Yes, I think that's helpful, and it's also I was thinking like in the meetings like this, like Tony Parsons and maybe Tim Newman and those guys, that it sometimes it can be also like confusing in that way. Like if I make a question, I have also feeling that can also be like misunderstood. Like if I don't get the idea, but also it can be like both ways, like in communication that I was thinking that it's, yeah. but like in that way, it's nice some time to speak just about like communication, that understanding and misunderstanding and that kind of thing.
Sure. And
how to make it work maybe better, like.
right. One of the things, and this is more of a generalization, but one of the things that each of the teachers or speakers may use their own form of language, and they have a particular style that they may use, just as you might, and sometimes that can be a challenge, but at the same time, it's always worth just, you'll hear things, you kind of work with the question, you work with it in your own being, your own mind, and again, you see if it works for you. And there are some teachers that are more skillful in the communication, and others have a more narrow language style. So I get what you're saying, and I understand it. And it's an important point that whether we're teaching or just asking questions, is that the communication is very important. And sometimes sometimes it gets overlooked, and there needs to be a realization that we need to make sure we're really deeply communicating, and there is deep listening as well.
Yes, that's true. And like I like what Richard Sylvester said, like he was pointing out like the relaxation is somehow one of the key points. Like when you like try more, you just get more and more confused. But like also not to make like relaxation the not a strategy like, but somehow to let things be, like let the relaxation become, or something like that.
Sure. And in my teaching, when I teach a lot of students, college students, and I use the phrase deep listening, which is a kind of listening without trying to make judgment or opinion, just a deep listening. And it's a kind of relaxation. And in that, sometimes the communication works well because it goes beyond just the words and the concepts. So yeah, I think that's important. And sometimes, again, if we try hard to comprehend it conceptually, that can actually sometimes block us. So it is a kind of relaxation, or is what I call a deep listening, where you're just hearing, and you'll see what shows up within you. And maybe some other people might have some, comments about that as well.
Well, I wanted to say, Harvey, that's a really good point about the deep listening, and the way I would interpret, the way my system would interpret it is a kind of like receiving, like just opening up, like an opening up of the system, and just letting the words do what they do, And so there's that relaxation, that opening, that softening, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be, one thing to think about with everybody is when we're hearing different teachings or speeches or whatever, and we're not sort of, shall I say, working well with the languaging that we're hearing, how does everybody work with that? I call it deep listening, but I'm curious if anybody else has a way of how, do they feel frustrated at times, or how do they work with the different ways that speakers or teachers language things? Yeah, go ahead, Mika. You're going to say something there, I think.
No, somehow I like if there is like no, I don't know. No, I like if there is like some kind of playfulness, that like if the teacher himself doesn't take himself like seriously, if they can be like some kind of playfulness in itself, and like also like if you let the not these kinds of communication, there's often feeling of like confusion, and if you like let the confusion like come and be,
Yeah.
then
And that's important too. And in a sense, and even, you know, even to let your own confusion as it comes up, and let that be too, because in the confusion, what appears to be confusion or in an unknowingness, sometimes there's the wisdom or the insight is right there. And so I would say too, playfulness and confusion and you know, speaking and teaching is kind of an art too, and some people are better at it and some people aren't. But I think you make a very good point. And again, even when one of us, I could speak for me, or that when there is confusion about what I'm hearing, sometimes I just let it be. I let it percolate, or as I sometimes say, I let it slosh around in my brain, you know, and just see what happens. And maybe a few minutes later or a day later, something shows up. And so yeah, and I think you've made some very valuable points, and it's something that those who teach and those who are listening, keep this all in mind. You know, and let me just welcome Lance. Just say you've joined, and anybody, of course, is free to unmute themselves and just kind of jump in. We were talking, I believe it started, I know some people joined late, including myself, and there was a discussion of communication and I guess some of the difficulties in the way things get languaged. And does anybody else see that sometimes as an issue when you're hearing different teachings?
Yeah, for me, for a long time, especially a lot of the neo-Advaita guys, it just really came across as really dry, and I could almost get nihilistic with it. I'm drawn to more of a bhakti approach, and just recently, just listening to Tony and Jim and some of the guys that I just thought were so dry and so, you know, there wasn't. Just really dry. Like I've been listening to him and just seeing the beauty in it, just seeing like the love that's behind the message. And that's what I've been going through recently.
You know, Lance, just from my position, that's a very good point that you make. And I, you know, often, and I hear a lot of different teachers, and sometimes I think it sounds like the same thing all the time, or I've heard it before, and then it becomes like there's like a dryness because there's like not a newness. That's what seems to appear. But I think I've also realized too that in that commitment, by them, and that sort of their willingness to try to communicate in their own way. And I think that's really important, because when you pick up that commitment, there's a realization there's a lot more to it than just the words. And even going back to one of Mika's points about, I could use Tony as an example. He'll laugh and he smiles and he has a jolly face sometimes. And sometimes I love just seeing that. And there's like a teaching within that. So it's that openness to whatever arises. And again, you're right, that bhakti, that devotion is also there from the teachers and us as the people who are listening. And let me just welcome Phyllis. Phyllis just joined. And anybody's welcome to just jump in or turn your camera on.
Hi, Harvey. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
I'll just jump.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment, just on what I just heard. I think, Jim and Andreas, and anyway, what you call the hardcore non-dualist, Tony, I think we have to remember that Ramana said, the greatest compassion is your own enlightenment. So the bhakti approach, the compassion, the love flows back to yourself. If you're not there to make somebody else feel better, huh? You can go and become a social worker if you like. That's fine if you're drawn to that. I think their messages are so uncompromising because there's a clarity in it and there is no compromise. You will get nothing from them. You will get no loving pat on the shoulder. You will get no nod, you got it. You will just get there is nobody, huh? And there is nothing to do and no one to do that. And a little more than that. And that can be said, as you said, by Tony in jolliness, or Jim in a very kind of almost ironic way. But the clarity of the message is the love. Huh? That's love. Saying this is the way. I'm not your high school teacher. I'm not your mom. Huh? There is a message and it's not my message. It's very depersonalized, which can make it come off as nihilistic and unloving and uncaring. But it's the love of the truth. Huh? And the truth is uncompromising, just like Shiva's sword. Huh? It's uncompromising.
Yeah. Phyllis, that's beautiful. And thank you for saying that too, because there is in the clarity of the messaging, in a way that Jim or Tony or Andreas and some of the others presented, it's also that compassion. I sometimes have realized too that the communication is so direct, and I think it's that commitment it's that commitment in the messaging, not teaching and not really, Tony says he's not a teacher, but that commitment. And so there is that sort of love and caring. It is like that sort of compassion. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to comment on what both you are saying. So Phyllis and Harvey. So yes, I actually saw it in action yesterday at Tim's meeting. So I saw that, basically us seekers, we're coming because we want to be relieved of the pain. There's no other reason but to be released or escape what we're experiencing, the painful aspects. And so there was a woman there, and basically she was looking for 1 ounce of hope, like some thread to hold on to, something to just to give her hope to continue forward. And I realized at that moment, it's if I were put in that position, I would want to, you just want to give that. And it's difficult almost to not like, I don't know if this is what Tim was experiencing, but I think there's kind of really the real compassion would be to say at that point, to show what this is about, because then you see that can't be used as an escape. It actually, there isn't that element of hope in the way that you were thinking. And so somehow the raw truth at that moment is probably the most compassionate.
Yeah. And at the same time, I understand too, and there's other viewpoints that and some teachers I've heard will say, well, I adjust my teaching in order to develop more rapport with the students. And I'm saying some of the teachers that I hear on the web. So I know there's other viewpoints out there. And I guess one of the things, and I think it is sometimes, I think of the phrase skillful means, in that, and in a way I work with students is sometimes I try to work with a languaging that works with the student from the way that they're perceiving things, so that there's more of a resonance. So there's different ways, that I've noticed, as well. But go ahead.
No, like last Saturday, like Tony had Zoom meeting, and it was like funny when one lady said, when Tony was like uncompromising and like hitting hard, like the lady said, like I feel like being like gaslighted, like bullied, like in like with humor, but somehow you may get that feeling, but it doesn't mean that, But when there is this uncompromising way of like
I think
keeping,
sorry, go ahead. I wanted to say, like, I think the words could be uncompromising, but there could be a way of delivering those words that you feel the empathy or the compassion in that. Like, I felt that from Tim yesterday. So I knew that he wanted, like, there was an element of him being compassionate toward that woman's pain. And that's important. So you feel that, even though certain words are said, you still feel the energy in which it's brought. And I don't know that all speakers are able to have that aspect as well.
So anybody
You know,
else like?
there's an expression in French that says, the most beautiful woman can only give what she has. And so each speaker is going to deliver a message according to their own programming, and they can't do it any other way. You can't ask a speaker to be more compassionate. Their way is the spontaneity, the clarity, and if there's the beauty of the truth, we can even use that word, of the message, is that it is totally spontaneous. So there is no scripting of this.
Yeah, and it'll come out in the flavor.
It'll come out, yeah, exactly, in the
In
way
that,
of
yeah,
that, in that speaker's personality. I can't say I'm going to try to be compassionate. That's a different relationship. I can talk to my friends like that. I can talk to my grandchildren like that. But this is a particular kind of way of talking. It's not Harvey. It's not when you're teaching your students. Of course, you have to have a rapport with them. It's different. They're not your usual seekers. They're university students who are coming to learn something. And in that, I think you sneak in some beautiful non-dual stuff too, but it's a different rapport. Huh? But when a speaker gets out there and says, there is no one, no decider, no chooser, and no world, they can't not do that. If it's their way just to say that, take it or leave it, that's their way. And it cannot, how can I say this? Nothing can be other than the way it is. Nothing.
Yeah, and so then it's up to us, the seekers, to go with what resonates the most. And
yeah,
some people,
you got to shop. Exactly, you got to do your shopping and see what makes your heart sing.
Yeah, so sometimes I use I use a Taoist phrase myself. It's called the way of things, and I look at teachers, especially in this domain, that each has their own way of languaging, and that's the characters wired in a certain way of speaking, and it's the way. It's just that's the way, and there's a tendency with me not to try to say, well, they should say it differently or argue it. That's what is at that moment. And Phyllis, I think you also make a good point too, because like in a university setting, it's a different audience and it's a different way. There's a different kind of teaching. But there's, but I do feel that very often my approach is just listen deeply, and then I'll just notice if I'm just taking it in. And I'm not looking necessarily for them to change their languaging, because that's just the way they present it. How about some of the people here give you a chance to speak? I can't tell if a lot of people have their cameras off, but Naomi or Kathy or Jennifer or Michael. I see Michael Markham, welcome. And you're all welcome to just jump in if you like. I don't hear anybody. Well, let me just sort of throw a question out there, and when Mika, well, I'm going to sort of address it to you because you had mentioned David Bohm and so on. Are you finding now, as you're hearing different teachers, are you able to sort of discover their intention behind it, or their you know, that they really are trying to teach? I mean, have you noticed that beyond the words itself?
Yes, I would say so, and like I was also listening that I have lately been listening like Tim Cleese, and I also like this, like they there is also this feeling of some kind of compassion with it, like.
Mm-hmm.
And also I would be interested. I read books from Richard Sylvester,
Right.
and his approach is somehow, I liked his book, like non-duality questions and non-duality answers.
Right. Good. I think we had some special guests all of a sudden. And
some, I would say also, like I was earlier, like 20 years ago, like or 30 years ago, like listening this Krishnamurti David Bohm dialogues, and there was something like 20, maybe like, was it like 15 years ago, I was looking like something like new approach, like I found it Tony, and there was something like which I liked and get it something or lose something with that.
right. And you know, one thing that may be useful, and then we'll kind of, you know, I know some other people may want to speak here. One of the things that both Bowman and who learned from Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, was in a sense to keep questioning and to keep looking and inquiring, and not to really land anywhere. Not to say, well, I found the answer, because then it becomes a concept. And in that sense of that, again, of that looking and inquiring, and that listening, and that's helpful. And you know, just a personal experience, sometimes I've noticed in the past that I would sort of take a concept and say, okay, well, that's it. But I've realized that any concept, it may be good for a moment, but then there's that seeing that things, it's like an onion, it's unpeeling itself. And there is no, you know, as Krishnamurti would say, there is no path to the truth. There's no technique. It's a pathless path.
Well, then so would you say then that even the non-dual language, not the language, even the non-dual perception of, or what do you call that? Like even the non-dual way of being is also perspective, and there are many stages along the way, and it's not, nobody is there. I mean, it just doesn't, right?
This is just me now, and I welcome anybody to speak. I would never say there's a there, like you've reached there's no end point, because it's not a point. It's not a there. I mean, in language, you might use those words, but, and even the words evolving gradually, that's been a point where people wrestle with that. But let me actually kind of ask, since you've actually have a good question, and let me kind of go around and see if anybody would like to have any comments on that, because I see some, Michael, you've joined, Michael Markham, and I see some other people. And all you have to do is just unmute yourself. You know, the question could be, and from some people, is there a quote unquote gradual evolving? Is it an unpeeling of things? Is it a directness? People have different opinions.
Yeah, Harvey, I think you can say it's all of those things, and none of them. Huh? It's whatever appears. It's whatever appears. Is it?
I like that.
And anything else is conceptual and is a thought, an afterthought that is sort of analyzing. That's when the mind creeps in and saying, oh, how is my experience going? That's mind, and it's not wrong. Mind is it too. Whatever is appearing is, but there's not even an it. Mind appears, thoughts appear, judgments appear.
Yeah.
But that's all they are. And then they disappear like a cloud. And just like the self, it seems to, what do they say? Everything is real and unreal, but I never really understood that. And I spent a lot of time when I was a seeker playing with those concepts. What is a real and unreal? I could spend hours thinking, what is consciousness? Is that awareness? And so I could think many seekers go through that phases of that, dealing with the language and the complexity and trying to get it. And it's different for each character. And however it appears for the character, that is the perfect way for that character. Perfect, not that it's easy, not that it's simple, but perfect in that it is the only way it can appear. Whatever is the only thing that can be there. Harvey, you couldn't be wearing a different shirt tonight because you're wearing that great military khaki shirt. I love it. I love it. Right? It's just because that choice or the non-choice, something chose that shirt. It didn't choose a different shirt. And that's how the whole thing is. It's that simple. It's not easy. When they say this whole thing is very simple, but it's not necessarily easy. But it's quite simple in that whatever appears is the only thing that can possibly appear.
Yeah. So you're not saying it as a belief or a landing place. You're saying it as the appearance of experiences as they come up. And I think maybe that's what I was confused about. But I'll let
as it appears, it can't be any other way. There's no way to land. Where are you going to land?
Yeah. That's you make some good points. At one time there was a wrestling within my character of, well, are the things like free will, no free will, choice, no choice. I used to go through all those mind exercises. And then it was a sort of a realization that, well, sometimes it'll appear like there is a choice. It appears like it. There's a sense of it, or a sense of free will, or a sense of no free will. And then I realized no need to worry about it. That's what showed up. That's the way it sort of appeared, and not to make any decisions. That's what showed up. If there's a sense of choice, that's what it looks like. And I'm not going to try to analyze, is it really real or not real? Because then I realized the mind can play games with it and turn all this into concepts. And even the concepts are just what shows up. So there was more of a relaxation of not trying to figure it out, just noticing what's there. Sometimes and so what appears to be a preference was going to happen. It may just happen inevitably anyway. And my mind will say, oh, that was a choice. But I don't worry about trying to figure out the so-called truth of it. I just notice what's there. Or there's a noticing, actually. Not I notice, a noticing. But again, anybody else want to see some people have joined? Welcome.
There is an attempt to understand what is perceived as our condition by using the very tools out of which our condition arises, our imaginary sense of self. The languaging that creates the illusion of self is used in an attempt to understand the relevance of self. And it's a vicious circle for seekers. They'll try this teacher and that teacher. I did for 50 years. There's no escape from that circle. We are that seeking circle. There's no path out of an imaginary condition. There's no way to close an imaginary gap. And there seems to be this floundering until whatever happens, happens. And that is seen by the brain that fabricates it. This objectifying, beautiful human brain that fabricates this dream of separation. Here, it's seen as the most precious gift in the universe, this awareness, aware that it's aware, only through languaging, only through this sense of self. It's not our enemy. It won't go away, even after the shift in perspective, thought about it as enlightenment. But the attempt to understand it, a dream from within the dream, anywhere you look, is one of your named objects. There's nothing unnamed in your world. That should tell you all you need to know. You can't think of a single thing that doesn't have a name. Some people say, oh, I have unnamed emotions. But their name is unnamed emotions. We are the consensus conceptual overlay against which we struggle. And the struggle happens until it doesn't. One night I slipped into a vortex, and the whole world as I saw it, as I had seen, as the brain I used to think of as mine, saw it the way it had previously seen it, lost its opacity. And I woke up in a morning of incredible, I wept for 2 days. The most incredible, beautiful universe. I was the lens through which the universe gets a glimpse of its own beauty and vastness, a tiny glimpse. We see just a tiny frequency of waves, colors. We hear a tiny frequency of sounds. But that's enough to get a fleeting glimpse. We won't last that long. A fleeting glimpse through this lens of self into the, we can imagine dinosaurs. We can put their bones together and imagine life 200 million years ago. What other animal can do that? We can see galaxies behind galaxies behind galaxies. Hubble extended space for all of us. Humans did that. Human thought. You are human thought. It's the very worst and the very best life has to offer. It's the only place where love exists. It's the only place where beauty exists. Seekers struggle against the dream from within the dream. We are the dream. We are this objectified dream of separation. And somehow through languaging, we can share our worlds. Ultimately, we are alone. Individually, we are alone in our world of named things. And in mass, we are alone. We are alone in the universe. There's no reason to assume there's anything like us anywhere in the vastness of space.
Hey, Michael, I'm out here in space.
In the vastness of space.
I'm out here in the vast.
Art, welcome back.
Art.
Yeah, Michael, there you go.
I'm like the baby at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, you're coming in and out.
I'm out here listening to all you humans speaking and talking about how you've had this shift in the vortex. And thank you for sharing that, Michael. That was beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I love you.
By the way, I'm going to turn it back to Art, and just Art, Garish had his hand up, and
yeah, I was noticing that.
Yeah.
So let's Thank you for sharing that, Michael. Very beautiful. Garish, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask or share whatever.
First of all, I would like to thanks Nothing FM. Very beautiful souls you all are, and I like to hear everyone. So beautiful. I want to recently share my experience that first when we go into spirituality, so we struggle with that, and we ask ourselves own selves that lots of questions bombarding on ourselves, and it takes times to realize our own self, and gradually we reach that state. And recently I experienced that we are not a part of life, we are alive, and just we are experiencing ourselves. Very beautiful. We are alive. This is it.
Yeah, well said, Garish. Yeah, we are life. We are that which.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's this projection out.
We are life. Just we are experiencing ourselves, and we are dreaming, still going.
Yeah, where's the limit to yourself, Garish? Where does it begin and end?
Just we, the practice of being present, it holds us to in reality. Actually, recently I am thinking about the definition of spirituality. That is, my English is not that good, but I am trying. Spirituality is, in my opinion, the self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-improvement to get reality, best reality, our own reality. Thank you for listening. I'm not that much big saint or what.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. Hey. You don't have your name up, but I recognize you. JHWN. Would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have much to say. I just kind of jumped on. Yeah, I don't have much to share on this really anymore. It's like I don't know how to describe it. I mean, like I do enjoy these meetings, and it used to be really important to me. I'd have it on my calendar about, there's this meeting this time, and I would read. And just for example, today I didn't really realize this was going on, but it just kind of popped up on my phone. So I was like, hey, why not join? It's kind of lost its mojo, I guess. And in a way there's a sadness about that. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel a little cynical about it in a way because, on the Nothing FM, I'll have updates on, and my phone will ding, and I'll look down and I'll be like, man, they're still talking about that. They're still talking about this. There's not, I mean, to me, there's nothing really to talk about. It's, you go live your life, and if you enjoy talking about it, that's also it too. But
I think it's a good place to be, in my opinion. Because that's a loss too. You lose that as well. It's just a lot of kind of things falling away. So that might be part of it.
Yeah. That's where I'm at now. I do miss the old, searching for the end of the rainbow. I mean, it can be fun, I think there's a thrill in that. I mean, we say that seeking is painful and this, but I do think that there's a whether you call it a sick thrill or whatever, it's fun,
It's not a sick thrill. It's just it gives you a little high. It gives you an adrenaline rush, like not an adrenaline, like an endorphin rush. Like when you seek and you're trying to find something, that there's some sort of chemical reaction in the brain that gives you a sense of like a certain high. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and when you get the next book or, ooh, this is really good. We've all been there where we're highlighting stuff or whatever. And when you see that everything is as it is and it's fine, the way I put it, everything's fine, that, that high or thrills taken away. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad everybody else is still here.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, and thanks, Sarah. Yeah, let's see who else is here. Naomi, you're just here to listen, I see. And Sahid, same. Welcome, Kathy. Welcome, Phyllis. Yeah, I know I missed a bit. Oh, William Schwartz is here. Hello, William. Welcome. Yeah, I might have to dip out again at some point. Thank you, Harvey, for taking over.
Hey, how are you, Art?
Welcome.
Hey, William. Oh, and Yuriva's here now. Great. Yeah, so, yeah, the seeking, the cynicism, the adrenaline. I mean, is any of it any different than, listening to music, being in love, having sex, being heartbroken? Like, I think there's no difference. I think there's a seeking for a bottom to something that, maybe it's somehow recognized that there is no bottom. And does that cause the seeking to stop? I don't know. Jim Newman has this interesting way of putting it, I heard last year, where he said, seeking is knowledge, which always leads to more knowledge. It's wanting to get knowledge, which always leads, it's a never ending thing. And he used this, and then he used the word longing to say that longing is recognizing that that's what seeking is. And I mean, these are just arbitrary words, of course, longing, seeking, whatever, evolution, practice, deepening, awakening, and they're all beautiful words that are all pointing to something that can't be put in words. Every, Harvey, who has been helping me host this meeting since I'm here in Texas, where, we had a little snow and the apocalypse has happened. And so somebody arrived to help me get some water and all these other things. So I apologize. I'm probably gonna have to dip out again for a minute at some point, quite abruptly again. But yeah, it's all just this beautiful dance of life, I think. It's like, my friend Chuck Hillig, he said that all of these practices and beliefs and ways of putting things, they're all like encampments around the void. Encampments circling the void, and so there's the Tony Parsons encampment, the Ramana Maharshi encampment, the Catholicism, the scientific, skeptic, atheist encampment, and all these different encampments that are trying to explain what's going on when no one's in control of any of it. It's all just this beautiful flowing, well, I call it beautiful, but to someone else it might be miserable, and to me it's miserable sometimes. I mean, me being this body mind, which is all I can experience, there are these experiences of expansion of consciousness or whatever people call it. I heard one person describe awakening experiences. There could be thousands of them, thousands of different flavors, who knows? And maybe in the future people will sample them like drugs. Maybe that's what we're all doing here. Because there's a different flavor to all these different things. And yet none of them are it. No experience can capture this, no awakening, no deepening, no vortex, no self drop falling away, no energy falling away. I mean, these are all beautiful expressions of what already always is, but none of them can capture it. And to seekers, they seem to do quite the opposite. They seem to confuse and befuddle and just act as a carrot on a stick. Like, oh, because I haven't had that experience, that this very, you know, certain sounding speaker, you know, speakers who speak with great certainty, you know, they sound very convincing. And when they share their experience, it's can be very alluring. And yet I feel like we all have to find our own way in this. And teachers, speakers, nobodies can only take us so far. That's what I say. Kathy, I see that you raised your hand, and then you brought it down again. Would you like to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what John said about how we just have to live our lives, and how, you know, my experience of that is disillusioning and sort of angry. You know, I was looking at, you know, as a seeker, I was hoping that this path was going to somehow save me from having to live my life, because, you know, my experience of it is not beautiful. And but I don't hear many people talk about that. I hear people say, you know, that everything's beautiful, and so I just find it frustrating, and it makes me wonder if this isn't, if I'm missing something, or
Yeah, Kathy, I agree. I think it's not emphasized enough how ordinary it is, how much it's not an escape from pain and feeling what needs to be felt. I really think that should be, and, you know, and sometimes you'll see people floating around in love, but there needs to be a connection also to the relative world in some sense or another. Otherwise, you're kind of just living apart from everything in a certain way. So yeah, I get the frustration and the anger. I've experienced anger too toward this a lot. Yeah. And letdown, there's probably letdown for some people, not for all, but for some after this is seen. It's just like, oh, this is it. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kathy and Sarah. Yeah, Garish, you have your hand raised.
Hello. I just want some share with you one point. This 1 hour before, I am coaching my client, and he's about little curious about spirituality. And these days, he's reading Eckhart Tolle book, Power of Now, and lots of confusion in his mind. It 2 or 3 days happening. So during that session, I observed lots of time what we do. We read lots of information, take information. Okay, and in that information, we entangle, or we like a Spider-Man. There is lots of questions, and we lose our own self in that situation, because Eckhart Tolle has his own experience. We can't transfer our experience to another person. We have to do our own work, or our own homework. That's it. Spirituality about that. During my 15 years spirituality practice, I learned this. No book can help, no teaching. Just we listen, we understand knowledge, but we work on our own self. We have to observe. We have to be in present. And this practice make perfect. We reach that state.
Yeah, Garish, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Phyllis, I see
Yes,
you on camera.
I wanted to respond to either was what Sarah was saying or Kathy about, you know,
Yeah.
it isn't all a field of sunflowers and butterflies and joy and all that. because I've just been through absolute hell and back again. However, but that's the character and the character's experience of depression, of falling apart, of psychiatrists, of drugs, of being with very mean nurses. And that's the experience of the character. That's Hamlet. That's how that role is playing out. But it's in the seeing and the way it's seen here is that changes nothing about about the reality of truth being things appear as they are and how they are and cannot be any other way. There is no self, There is no chooser, there is no doer, there is no decider. So my experience in a psych ward couldn't have been any other way. And that is just as beautiful as someone who's had samadhi experiences. Of course, I would prefer, if I could choose, to have the samadhi experiences of bliss and butterflies and sequins and all the good stuff. And this character has experienced them. But anything can appear. The suffering, the pain is pain, and happiness is happiness, and they appear and they disappear. And of course we prefer the chocolate cake. I want the samadhi. I don't want the psych ward again, But I'm not there to choose, There's life is doing itself. Or I could say life is doing itself and is undoing us and our belief systems, cracking holes in the belief systems. So I see what Kathy's saying and Sarah's saying, yeah, but nobody likes to talk about the psych ward because it's not really fun. And as Adyashanti once says, it doesn't attract many people. We don't put that stuff in the brochure of awakening. It doesn't attract that there can be very rough spots, very, very rough spots when the me seems to be protesting violently to being killed off, or seemingly killed off. So, but finally, one is not better than the other. They're just experiences of the character, and couldn't be any other way. So I've had the flowers and the fields and the joy and the bliss and all that, and now that's gone. Everything that can come can go. So that's just life unfolds as it chooses, not according to our plan.
Thank you, Phyllis. I think Art may be not available at the moment. I think what's important here, and I think a lot of us may have picked up that the seeking is often looking for some type of experience. And of course, usually the looking is for a positive, I've won the Mega Millions, or my Bitcoin is now $100,000 or whatever. But they're looking for experiences and then defining this, whatever you call it, awakening, whatever, as some type of specific experience. And it doesn't work like that. As Romano said too, the body does what the body does, and all kinds of things may arise, and they may be pleasant or unpleasant, and there's suffering that can occur too. That's the character may have lots of different things, but it's the ordinariness. It's not a specific experience, and it's probably the mistake that many make, is thinking something's going to be at the end of the rainbow there, the big pot of gold. And it's very extraordinary. In other words, extraordinary. And Michael, I see your hand is up.
I was thinking that quite often you hear it referred to as that we cannot speak of it, or quite often even the most accepted speakers of this will refer to it. And that implies there's an it that cannot be objectified beyond our ability to objectify. To me, that's misleading. Something Phyllis said, that this is it. And even that implies that there's a this to be it. But quite often, this idea of presenting it as the illusory realm beyond us that we can get to is just missing the mark. I was thinking of something somebody said about this flatness of being. There seems to be a purgatory, a seeker's purgatory, where everything goes flat, where the emptiness settles in, the purposelessness of life, the non-meaning to life, the essential emptiness of all things, including the sense of self, is almost a spiritual flatland, a flatlining. And I think I spoke to other people, actually quite a few people who have been through that, before the fullness rushes back in. The emptiness seems to empty itself out before whatever happens in this. They speak of the fullness rushing back in, and I can relate to that. The
So
joy.
before that,
I'm sorry.
Before that, would you say it's like a vacant no man's land? It's like sort of, it's
Yeah.
just, you're just met with, it's just vacant, and that's all there is to it. And that flatness that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's the desert with endless signs pointing up to endless desert up ahead. We're left with no beliefs, no handholds, nothing. We're left with nothing. We feel we've lost everything we never really had. And it takes time, I think, to integrate that into the brain. It's so foreign. We're taught from babies that this is the world and this is the name of things, and it takes a village to build a self, and it takes a long time to deconstruct that solidity, it seems. But again, that's just another impression. But this speaking of it as if it's beyond our ability is, I think, misleading. That's all.
Michael, do you think that sometimes when there's a reference to this or it, the different words, and then it seems like there's something else that, like another thing out there, and maybe that's a trap one can fall into, thinking this it's some kind of mystical being or thing out there? Or could it also be that it's used as a concession to language? It's like, it's just in speaking, it's using a point language as a pointer to that which has no description, but just as a pointer. I'm just wondering if you could also see it as just a symbolic something there.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's speculating that there is a this even, and that there is an it beyond our ability to objectify. I don't think it's a pointer. I think anywhere you point in a dream is the dream. If you were in your dreams at night and tried to find something outside of that dream, you couldn't find it. It's all dream. We are the dream. So pointing to it or this even is still an object outside of who we think we are, outside of who the brain thinks we are. There is no this, there is no it. Those are just names, just descriptions. And we are the objectified overlay, the consensus conceptual overlay. And I find that in all of its spectrum incredibly beautiful. and tragic and beautiful. From an objectified perspective, that's who I am. That's all I can see. That's my world. That's my aloneness. That's my longing.
You know, there's this sort of came to me, that as a dream, if I was to use that sort of metaphor, there's a beautiful hopelessness in it.
Mm.
If I could call it that, it's like a beautiful, I've used the word hopelessness, but it's a beautiful hopelessness.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can, it's sort of, it's something that just showed up.
Yeah, and there's a melancholy that comes with that. A melancholia. The Russians have a word for it called toska, which is the whole spectrum of melancholia.
Maybe it's a hopelessness held in, how did I think of it? Hopelessness held in that acceptance of what is, or not held in, or, yeah.
Hopelessness. Falling into whatever arrives. Whatever arrives. Like Phyllis was saying.
If it can't be any other way, there's no hope, huh?
Well, even saying it can't be other way says that there's it.
There isn't a way. It's just how no, there's no this, there's no it, there's just, and then that's gone.
Not even that.
Yeah, there you go. Not even that. There you go. You want another one?
No,
here's some more life.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, like that. Like something like you said. I love you, Phyllis. It's so glad.
I love you too, Michael.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself now.
Like what Philip was saying, like, here's a slap, here's a moment of bliss, here's a roller coaster ride.
And now it's gone. Oh my. We try to freeze frame moments. That's the only way we can see them. And events like my birthday or my wedding. Well, there's no separation in events. Everything is falling into everything. We separate and then try to figure out what the separate parts mean. I'm not laughing, and part of me's crying because of this human condition struggling against who we are and who we aren't. Oh my. To objectify is to isolate and separate. And that's where the loneliness comes from. That's where the aloneness comes from. It's imaginary separation. It's just imaginary separation. We live in a real world as far as we know, but we overlay that with concepts, ideas, self-referential data points, lines around everything.
Do we even know if you said it's like we're in the real world, but is that?
I don't know.
That could be a story too.
Yeah, and also not only that, some of the speakers say real or non-real, and at that point you start getting a kind of sense of a mystical something, or that's where that part of that is misleading. Is you start having this. This sort of like, oh, there's some quality of that mysticism. What else could it be?
Yeah, I'd forget that real and unreal. Huh? I wrestled with that for many wasted hours. There's nothing there for you. Well, there's nothing anywhere for you because you're not there either. But, that real and unreal is very confusing. That's all it is.
But you had that experience? Or is that kind of how it was?
No,
that was your experience with it? No,
that's not my experience. Real and unreal. It's just what happens. Is it real or unreal? That's a thought. It's a judgment of what is. It's a judgment of the happening.
Mm-hmm.
To whom does it matter that it's real or unreal? You know, who is to judge that? Where is the one that cares about that? It's just the you. It's the me trying to make sense out of it, to grasp it and understand it, so it can hold on to something, because it feels that it's drowning. It's drowning, and all the handholds are gone, and there are no lifesavers, there are no lifeboats. And it says, if I can figure out this real and unreal stuff, maybe I can, hold on for a while longer. It's just the mind, me trying to make sense when there is none.
Or sense is relative.
Mm.
Sense is self-referential. Our own definition of reality always conforms to our perceptions of it. One of my favorite teachers said, if you can put it on the table, it's real. And I, for a long time, said, if you can measure it, it's real, in reference to physical reality, what we assume is there. Everything else is make-believe, politics, love, law.
Well, I heard Paul, what's his name? Paul Summers, Morgan Summers say, we only know one thing from what it is not, or from the contrasting element, or like we know something in contrast to something else, but we don't really know it as it is. It's like we don't have that. It's only the edge that we kind of.
No, we assume that some things have their own intrinsic naturalness. There are things, we think, but things exist only in the naming of them. Things exist only in our world. Separate existential entities as things exist in the objectification of them. Only in the human objectifying mind does the I am emerge. A dog doesn't know they're here. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh, a dog and cat don't know they're here, but we do. And here for us is the objectified overlay, the consensus conceptual dream of separation. We are the dream against which we struggle. And dream is a terrible word, really. It doesn't, there's no analogy for the place where all analogies originate. There's nothing to compare our condition to. We are conditions. We are the only place where things, we are the only place where weather exists. What is weather? Does it stop at the back door? I've often wondered about that. Does weather come into the house? And what is weather? It's just a name for whatever's going on outside. That's the weather. Is there a line around a mountain? Is there a line between Texas and Oklahoma? Are they just ideas? Is everything just an idea for us? And are we using ideas in our attempt to deconstruct or to grok what ideas are? There's no such thing as an idea. There's no such thing as thought. There's no such thing as enlightenment. There's no such thing as things. Except for us. That's where the beauty and love arise, in our imaginary separation. Oh, I see Art's back. He circled back into the...
Art, you're needed. Where do you go?
I'm back.
He's back.
I see Rich is here. Rich, did you just have your hand raised a moment ago? Rich, are you there?
I think Naomi had her hand up at one point.
Naomi? Naomi said her microphone wasn't working.
Okay.
Right. Naomi, are you able to speak? Naomi?
Yeah, I'd rather not speak, but I'm really appreciating the being here though. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you. I guess Rich has gone away from his phone or computer. Khan, is that how you pronounce your name? Khan? Are you there, Khan? No? Okay. A lot of people who are here and not here at the same time, it seems. A lot of sages. Yariv.
Yeah, I'm here, Art, but
Oh, Rich.
I'm just
You
listening.
appeared.
I'm just listening, mate.
You had your hand raised a moment ago, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I was trying to do a clap.
All right. All right, good to have you, Rich. Yariv.
I
How's it
think
going?
catching her as a lady, she's really good. And yeah, it's quite profound.
All right. Yariv, what's up, man?
First, I'm gonna have to go very soon because I'm working today, but this has been an amazing conversation for me. I just heard so much stuff that just resonated. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to listen so far. I've only been able to be here for about half an hour, but I just, yeah, it just, I just heard so much amazing stuff today. So thank you for saying all these beautiful things. Let's see, this is Michael, Phyllis, Sarah, Kathy, Harvey, Girish, hope I pronounced it correctly, and Art. Just, yeah, just beautiful, beautiful conversation.
I agree. I think everybody like brings something really beautiful. It's just the combination and how it all kind of comes together. And I think I haven't been at a meeting that has these aspects and is so clear about going into the like the more subtle layers of all of this, you know?
Thank you, Yariv. That was really beautiful. And, you know, I think one of the things that has certainly shown up here is that everything is not all woo 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 or happy and blissful. There's also the character can have physical suffering, and there can be psychological suffering as well. Many different things can occur. And I know sometimes, and I've heard this question, that sometimes if one says, well, I'm going through a lot of suffering, either physically or mentally, is there anything, quote unquote, I can do to end the suffering? And, you know, it's a question that often comes up. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any thoughts about that. Go ahead, Kathy. Looks like you unmuted.
Well, I'm hesitant. I mean, I'm the one who always brings up suicide. I mean, there is one thing that we seem to be able to do that we could end the suffering, and that's suicide. I mean, it's not a great solution, but and not many people wanna respond to that or talk about it. Like I've just been going through so much suffering, and I don't think suicide is the way to go, but if anything can happen here, it seems like suicide is one of the things that can happen. I don't know. It's I keep coming to these meetings, but it's also frustrating to come and listen, because I just always have this experience that others are getting something that I am not, just because of the way it's spoken about. It's spoken about as, beautiful, and everyone is so thankful for all the beautiful sharing. And my experience is just I'm angry, and I'm quite miserable, and feeling like I'm going crazy at times.
Yeah, there's not enough support for that. I think it's good that you're bringing this up, and I think we should discuss it openly. I think this is something that should be spoken about.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello, mate. I'm angry, miserable, and what was the other one? Angry, miserable, and forgot the third one, but I identified with it. There's plenty of support, mate. I'll speak to you if you want afterwards. Crazy, that was it. Crazy, angry, miserable, and crazy. You're not alone.
Thanks, Rich.
One of the important things, Kathy, is that you're here with us, and in some ways, maybe the feelings that you have and some of us have, different kinds of feelings, we can share them openly. There may not be quick answers or things, but to be able to know that there's a listening, and that what you say matters. Garish, I see your hand is up.
Yes. Okay. Who said that? Suffering, Kathy? Okay. Kathy, I have one question that do you accept yourself?
I don't even know what that means. Probably not.
Yes. So accept yourself. You're good, you're bad, no matter. Accept as it is. When we accept our own self, because I also gone through such depression, such things, and because of such things, we actually ask questions, and we inquire ourselves, and there is start from self-inquiry, self-awareness. So take an opportunity that this is the time, and this is life. Accept. One time in future, maybe you will be very happy.
But yeah. I think it's not always as simple as that. And I think a lot of people are experiencing what Kathy is experiencing, but it's not spoken about enough. It's just not spoken.
Yes, but what happened when we said that is not, where is the energy go, that thing grow. That is the simple. And that is the value system we have to first build. Okay. If we say that is difficult, then the mind create difficulty. When we say that I can do, be positive in what we can in the psychology term, affirmation, that helps.
Garish, that's a good point. Yeah, and yeah, I see John has his hand raised. John, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
I don't really know what I was going to say. I mean, Kathy, I can certainly relate to you, and I think other people can too. And I mean, no disrespect by, you know, what was just said, but by like telling somebody to accept themselves, just, I feel like that just lends, it has the possibility to lead somebody to think that they're not doing something right. That, oh, now I need to accept myself. And the reason that these people are feeling the way that they are or come across the way they are is because they do accept themselves. And I think everybody is just expressing how they express. And in a way, we're all different. And some people, you know, Michael Markham, I mean, you speak so beautifully, and, you know, it is, we're all like colors of the rainbow, you know, and we're all different, you know, and this is everything. So while it might sound like some people are more depressed or cynical or angry, there's really no difference. We're all just different representatives, you know, and we're all beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, John. I don't know what to say. You just said it all, John. And yeah, I mean, you know, Byron Katie has that book title, Loving What Is. But sometimes you just can't, you know? And then accepting that is going to cause less suffering than thinking that you could do something else. I mean, a few minutes ago, I thought that I wasn't going to have any water for the next day. And now, like, this person who's helping me told me they just found like some water at the grocery store. So now I have water, you know. I mean, life is just these responses, this cycle, this feedback loop of interaction with itself. You know, you could be so happy one day, so sad the next, and you know, and everyone's dealt a different hand of cards, as they say. You know, genetically, conditions, environment, parents, circumstance, all of that, and all of that's included in reality and wholeness in the dream. Harvey, what I was wondering, yeah, what could you say on this?
I think, you know, in a way that you could say we're dealt whatever hand we're dealt with it. There's each character, each of us, there is both, there's a kaleidoscope of possibilities of both happiness, of suffering, of pain, of depression, of joy. And it's all that which arises. And in some sense, as Art pointed out, he made reference to Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. And at times that can seem awfully hard. And in a way, you know, somebody once asked me about that, and they said, well, how do you love what is when you're in extreme pain or mental suffering? And I said, well, in a sense, it's acknowledging I'm suffering. That's what's there. Or I'm confused. There's confusion, and that's what's there. And that's in accord with what is. That's what showed up. Is I don't want to be suffering. I don't want to be confused, and that's what's there. And in that sense, that's what is, and not in a sense of resignation, like, oh, poor me, but acknowledging that's what's happening in this moment. And ultimately the question could be, well, how long will the suffering be there? And maybe the only answer is it's there until it's not. And so each of us plays, as Chuck Hillig would say, we have our own song to sing, and that harmony, or that in that symphony. And everything shows up and arises just as it does. And that's not a cliche to say, well, the suffering is going to go away or anything, because things will be there. There's an arising of a kaleidoscope of possibilities. And Girish, your hands up.
Yeah. Well said. See, when I go, my experience in depression, the thing that the rule, where is our attention go, that thing grow. And in psychology, maybe there is one, when we focus on positive things, that thing, positive things happen, or that patterns become to happening. There is one part where while suffering there, I want come out from that suffering. There is one wish, or our hope, we can say. While we are trying to focus on that part, increasing that muscles, our attention go to the positive side. And that is very, very important. Then our energy goes to that direction, and we increase our self-motivation, what we can say, or different words. That helps. I observe on myself. I done that while in depression. In spirituality, I saw. In my client, I also saw. It helps.
One more thing to add is that a lot of these people that had an awakening or seeing through, they actually went through incredibly intense suffering. Like
Yes.
Nancy describes that, and Michael, I think, I'm not sure, I think he said, yeah, he went through a hell of like series of things. So, and then Tim Kliss even describes the utter depression and just like that kind of flatness when that just, is all that is, and, and it seems to be a period of time. Like at some point the fullness does come in, but there is a period of time where this is actually the norm in terms of like the process of it, basically.
Sarah, what is your experience? What has your experience been in that regard?
So I don't really know what phase I'm at, or if there is a phase. I know that my life has been pretty much a hellhole. So that's what like drew me to this, because it was just, and nothing, like it was just something that was so overwhelming in so many regards. And then this gave some semblance of relief until it really didn't. And there are days that I'm having fun with it, and there are days that I'm just angry as hell, and I just, and I just want to, like, I get on some of the talks and I kind of challenge everything, and yeah, and so yeah, I think it varies, but definitely it's been kind of turbulent for me, and yeah, it's and kind of coming into what is sometimes just the rawness of the sensations in the body is so overwhelming. It's just like, and you have to feel that, and that's what people don't want to feel. It's like drop into the body and see what it's like, and it's like, because we use our minds to kind of not have to go there. And yeah, so I definitely understand pain, very, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Sarah. And yeah, you're right. That's a very common story of the suffering, really intense suffering and even suicidal depression leading to some awakening. You know, this is Eckhart Tolle's story and many people's story, actually. It's, you know, this has been a really nice meeting that I haven't even been here for the most part. So, but what I'd like to do for the last few minutes here, we have 7 minutes left roughly. I'd like to maybe for all of us to just sit in silence and feel the presence of just what is, whatever is appearing. So for those who wish to stay for 5 minutes right now, let's do that. 5 minutes of silence.
Want me unmuted, Art?
Yeah, Rich, wanted to hear your beautiful voice before the meeting
Well,
ended.
I would put my face on, but you're recording. So I just did a little flash, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Pop in, show my face. What's up?
Well, that was the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Stay safe out there.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Art.
thank you.
Thanks,
Hey,
JHWN.
take care. Loved everyone. Lots of love and love and
Thanks,
love.
Kathy.
More
Lots of
love.
Bye.
Love. Bye
Love
bye.
nothing there. Nothing FM.
Love you all. Love you all.
Love
Bye.
you. Bye, Harvey.
Bye.
Bye, Girish.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
That's it. Bye, Art.
Bye, Phyllis.
Bye, Phyllis.
Hi, Harvey. Heartbeats to you all. My Valentines.
How do I stop the stream? Oh, I think Emerson has to stop it. Yeah.
You stop recording now, mate.
Yeah, we stopped recording.